Welcome back. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. The car artwork videos aren't doing as well as I would like them to do, so if you've clicked on here, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy what we're going to work on today, which is this piece. The previous video we did the sketching on it, the Vauxhall Tigra. If you haven't watched that yet, do go and give that a watch, because then you'll see how we got to this point. Today we're going to get this in ink and colour, once I've decided what colour I'm going to do it in. And after that, it will be going up in the shop for sale, because every single piece that I do in the video is available. The original artwork is available. I do post to most places in the world. There's a few places that it's very difficult to post to, but looking at the stats for where my audience is, I think you're probably all okay. All pieces are sent well packaged to prevent damage in transit, and they're always insured. The postage cost isn't on top, I just include that in the price. So it's just one cost for everything, all in. Nice and easy. Go and look on my website over here and you'll find all the information on original artwork, prints, which I currently do through Redbubble, and everything else I do. That's the advertising out the way. Oh, and have a look in the description as well, because there's some links down there. I think we should just crack on, get into this inking, and make this picture come to life. Here we are again, back at the drawing table, and we're on the usual Rotring pens. And we're going to turn this sketch into some ink work. I'm going to do the border last, because that's just going to be easier, I think. That's problematic. That's the sort of mistake we don't like making. I'll leave that for now and come back to that later. Sometimes it happens. Using the French curve doesn't really help with this, because these lines all change as you go round, and the French curve can actually make it worse because it pushes you in a particular direction. Occasionally we just make a mistake. think part of the problem I'm having here is my hands are just a little bit shaky today. This is all part of whatever the health thing is. And you have to not fight it, you just have to relax as you work. Because if you fight it, you tense up and then you can't make your lines flow nicely. That's dead. I'll be back in just a moment for you. I've got a feeling that my blood sugar might be a little bit low. I just realised I can't remember when I ate today. So let's go and do that, and let's finish off the next round of details so that I don't completely mess this up. I'm back. I had some lunch. Made all the difference. Yeah. Sometimes I'm very bad and I forget to eat. Now, I'm not putting fine detail in on the centre cap on the alloy because, well, the scale I'm working at is so tiny you wouldn't see it. So we just do a squiggle as a suggestion of some detail there. If this was, say, A3, that would be big enough to see, and then I would bother to put the detail in. But there is such a thing as too much detail sometimes. Same with the tyre treads. I'm just going to put a suggestion of where the treads are. I'm not actually going to put the treads in because honestly it's not the focus here. So all the basic inking done. These vertical lines in the background, I'm going to do those by hand once I've got the secondary ink done here. I wish I had something I could show you to scale. I mean, you can see, like, compared to my hand, how small some of these details are. One of the things when it comes to people viewing this online is they'll look at things like the badges on here, or the number plate, and say, why is that wonky? And it's wonky because it's hand-drawn and tiny. There's not really much you can do about it. So it's just part of the picture. I don't understand why it needs to be any different than that. Because in person, it doesn't look that wonky, it looks right. It's just when you view things digitally, you can really zoom in and analyse in a way that your eyes in the real world don't seem to see things. So I don't worry about it. There aren't that many points on here where I can actually add in heavier lines because, well, with it being the soap bar era of styling, everything's sort of very smooth. So maybe we'll try some comic book tricks. Which is what you do with sort of more organic shapes like bodies to give them depth and dimension that, you know, you wouldn't really see it like that in the real world, but with illustration style it works. So like adding the drop shadows on tyres there just sort of boosts it a bit. I think a lot of the depth on this is actually going to come in with the colouring rather than the inking, because I'm able to add a bit more that way than I can here. Smooth these curves out a bit, that might help. Well, I think I'm mostly happy with this. The only thing left to deal with is this mistake here. And the reason I have the scissors, you can't just rub this out. So I'm hoping, because it's in such a small area, I can take the bulk of the ink off, and then when I colour, it will disappear. This is always a risk, because you're damaging the surface of the paper to do it. But if I were to use like a white ink on here, the pens and things, they're not going to go over this very well. I mean, they're not going to be great over this, but mistakes happen and you have to find ways to fix it. You just have to be very careful. You don't want to chew up the surface too much. You're just sort of taking the very top off. Like so. Doesn't look perfect there, but trust me, once you get the colour on, that little bit there will disappear, which will be really good. Right, I did all these vertical lines with the ruler, but I want to do them by hand because I want them to look a little bit rough. Yeah, I think rough is probably the right word. I'm happy with this. I'm going to leave this to dry and then we will clean it up and decide on a colour. I've got the inking all cleaned up now, we're ready for colour. And I've spent a bit of time today going through my pens that I've got and figuring out what colours I can do. I can't quite get the green right. There were a couple of different greens that the Tigra came in. I can get close, but I can't get as close as I want to. And I can do the very dark purple that they did them in. But I've been doing those kind of colours quite a bit on stuff recently, so I want to do something different. So I've gone for the copper, which isn't as common a colour, but does suit the car quite well. And these are my colour samples. You can see I've worked through various different blends, if you like. And these are the ones that look like they're going to give me the best finish. I like to make these little samples like this when I'm doing a piece, because if I have to put this away for any reason, I keep my little sample chart with it, so I can come back and I don't have to remember which pens I used. I can just refer to this and it tells me. So we are going to start with Milky White, which is E51. Now, one thing they did do with these pens, which I'm not a big fan of, this is one of the older style ones, and it gives you the colour name and the colour code. And this is one of the newer ones, and it's just, they're not as good. You've got the code there, but you don't have the name, and these lids are a bit rubbish too. They don't stack up on one another. You know, this one stacks the extra lid, this one, it just, you know, so that's not great. Anyway, we're colouring. You're not here to listen to me make artist complaints. Oh, hang on, is that? Oh no, it is. I'm just checking whether they were body coloured or black plastic, because the trims on the Tigra did change throughout production. Earlier cars had more black plastic on them, later cars had less. And I haven't decided which age this one is, to be honest. It has a vanity plate on it, the number plate. Yeah. Missed a bit there. It looks very strange at the moment as we're building up the various layers. That is the real challenge with the colouring, is figuring out what goes where. And this next one's really going to change things a lot because this is quite a big change. What I'll probably end up doing as well here, you'll see it as we go along, is there's a lot of pale area on this, and I think that's going to make the final colour too pale. So once I get these darker shades in, I can then tone everything down. But I like to start pale first because it's, well, I can bring that down darker, whereas if I start dark, I can't make it paler. So you sort of tweak it as you go, as you will see shortly. There's quite a lot of ink on here now. I can feel as I'm moving the pen that it's sort of reactivating the previous layer and smooshing it around, so I'm just having to be a bit careful because I don't want to go too far. The other thing, of course, here is we've got a very, very stark contrast between this dark orange and the very pale highlights. We shall deal with that in a moment. But this is what I meant about, you know, you start like this and then you sort of blend things down so that it comes into focus. It is a little bit scary doing this, because if I make a mistake with the colouring, I can't very easily undo it. Digital work is nice because I can do that. I can play about with infinite colours, I can make mistakes and undo them, and it's great. You have a lot more freedom. But I like using traditional media, I like using ink pens. There's something about the just physical experience that makes it very enjoyable. That, or it's just the fumes off the pens. Maybe it's a bit of both. So with this colour, which is, what's this one? I don't know what this colour's called. It's Y17. I am blending all the way through the various different shades we've done, except for the very, very high points where I want to leave quite a sharp highlight. And this is pulling everything down into that coppery colour that I want this to be. It's not going to be exactly perfect, because that's the nature of what I'm working with. I mean, that's something you have to bear in mind when you do colouring like this, is you aren't trying to be hyper-realistic with it. You are trying to create an image that reads like the thing that it is, with limited tools, limited skills, that sort of thing. So you shouldn't get hung up on everything being absolutely perfect, because there isn't any need. And that's a mistake a lot of people make with artwork, is not everything is fine art, not everything is trying to be fine art and hyper-realistic. Some art is just trying to be this. Go back to our reddish yellow, which is YR31. Just blend some of this out. So trying to get rid of some of these sort of harder transitions, because I don't want everything to be like that. I mean, this sweep here is quite, when you look on the reference, it is quite a sharp reflection line there. Obviously this is under studio lights as well, so I'm eliminating some of these reflections of the roof because the art style doesn't call for that. But I've got to do something here, because it's not quite where I want it. What's this one? This one is Y38, which is a slightly different orange. I did use this on my samples, but this wasn't in my original recipe. So this is just an additional blend. Like any recipe, you just tweak it until it's what you want it to be. Don't lick your pens. Yes, squeaky Copics. Sound of my working day. I'm going to emphasise some of the paler points on this with a blender pen. These don't have any pigment in, they're just the solvent. And I just want to just brighten up a few areas, smooth a few blends out. Now, as time goes on, I will hopefully get more pens, more colours, and that will allow me to do even better work. The trouble is these Copics are not cheap. Once you've got them, you're fine, but building up your set takes a while, and I just buy them as I need them. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I think for the colours I've got and everything, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to let this dry before I do the next colour, because this is a lot of ink on this page. So I'll be back in just a moment. I'll get myself a cuppa. It's dry enough that we're safe to continue, I think. As usual, I'm going to do the black parts of this last, so that we don't drag the black ink through everything else. So we might as well start with the wheels. Interesting thing on the Tigra is the exhaust. A few of the Vauxhalls did this as well at the same time. They have a square profile on the back box rather than a round one, which on such a curvy car always seemed like a bit of a strange choice. And that big smudge on the bumper there, that's not going to be a problem because that's going to be black, but that is one of the challenges with these inks is when you've got quite a bit loaded up on the paper, as I have here, it can be very easy to drag a colour across when you don't want to. I shan't worry about it because we can deal with that one in this instance, but it is a challenge. Well, let's pretend that's a reflection. There must have been a blob on my pen. Again, more challenges that you face with traditional that you don't with digital. Because if that was a digital painting, one, it wouldn't have happened, and two, I could have just undone it. I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, just trying to work on the areas that are, well, you get to this point and you're trying to avoid the areas that are wet, so you don't want to be transferring the ink around, and you're trying to get the details in, and it's just tricky. I've done a little bit of black on the number plate there, but I don't want to do the rest of the black until I've done the colour, which means that I won't get the tyres done until I've done this background, because that needs to be done in a colour. And I've not decided what colour I'm using for the interior. On all the references that you see, because the glass is tinted on these, the interior does just look black. So I may just colour the interior black. Or I might use something like these very dark blues and purples. I'll see how I feel about it when I've done the background colour. Going to go with green on the background on this. I think that will be a really nice contrast to the copper, sort of copper orangey colour of the car. And it'll give me a good chance to use my greens. Do you know what? I've just realised something. This is a Tigra. I've done it kind of orange, and now I'm doing a green background. So I've sort of done a tiger in a jungle, haven't I? Unintentional fun. I quite like that. I think that works really well. Okay, just this border to go. I'm really not entirely sure what colour to go with for that. So I don't want something that's going to contrast too much with the car or the background. I suppose I could use this olive drab. Yeah, that works. Yeah, I like that. Which is just as well because I can't change it now. Just the black to go, and the interior. I think I'm going to go with this blue for the interior, so it's not just a solid black, because it is very dark, so I think it will just help you know, make it contrast enough. Also, the blue should work well against this copper colour. It should actually help boost that a bit, I think. Again, this is me trying to apply colour theory without actually understanding any of it at all. Just going with what I know works from experience. And this little white bit here on the interior, that's the rear view mirror, which is why I'm not colouring that bit in. I need a reflection line here. This big glass tailgate these cars have. And I'll put a second smaller one in. Just to make sure that you've got the idea that there's a piece of glass there and it's not just like a little pickup truck. Which I imagine is probably pretty easy to do on these, a bit like a Camaro. You just pop the tailgate off and then you've got a pickup truck. A very small one for carrying small things. Okay, black time. Wiper blade at the front, and then we'll work through all the rest of it. Thanks for joining me on this one. I hope you'll tune in next time. It's Tuesday at 3 PM, whether we're doing artwork or cars or sewing or DIY or whatever. We do a bit of everything here, and if you go into the channel you'll see there's playlists and there's lots of content and all that good stuff. So have a click about, subscribe, please subscribe. Yeah, tell people about the channel, spread the word. Hopefully our next one is going to be just as fun to do as this one's been. I shall see you in the next video. Yeah. Bye.